Not everyone can grit their teeth and grind for hours a day. They can't cram inventory that isn't selling into their spare bedroom. They won't advocate for their manufacturer's rights if it means taking a sledgehammer to profits. Starting a sustainable fashion venture isn't for everyone. Maisa Mumtaz-Cassidy knew the road ahead would be rough when she started Consciously. Today, her platform stocks a staggering number of ethically produced, environmentally friendly clothing brands for men, women, and kids. She started the company during the pandemic. She had just had her first child, and the two experiences wreak havoc on her body. But toughness runs in Maisa's family. At just 26, her mother left an abusive marriage to raise Maisa and her two brothers, bouncing from LA to the UK and then Bangladesh. She's a successful entrepreneur in her own right. In fact, Maisa's whole family consists of hardened entrepreneurs who made their way in the garment industry. She grew up listening to the roadblocks faced by factory owners who often had to cut ethical corners to keep up with the steady demands of Western fashion brands. When the torch was passed to her, Maisa took an even tougher path, more demanding, more hands-on, and more fulfilling. You're about to hear Maisa's best advice for bootstrapping an ethically and environmentally conscious venture, how she bloomed as a fiercely determined business owner, and the nearly insurmountable difficulties she overcame to forge her entrepreneurial path. I'm Catherine Vasilopoulos, and this is And So She Left, the podcast about incredible women founders and the wisdom they uncovered beyond the corporate world. No entrepreneur, not even the most successful among us, has everything figured out. That goes double for Maisa. She recently gave birth to her son and is still finding that crucial balance between work and motherhood. Spoiler alert, it hasn't been easy, pre or post-pregnancy.
My son is 4.5 months old. So to be honest, I haven't figured out what the balance is. I'm like working a little bit here and there when I can, but otherwise I'm with him. And I'm at that point where I'm trying to figure out what childcare looks like and, if I want part-time help or full-time help. This is my first baby, and running a business with a baby is really, really, really hard. There's a lot of mom guilt, but I'm also really fortunate to have a good team and feel confident to step aside while they run things so I can focus on being with my child right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me about what that means to you, mom guilt.
I don't know. It's like a really strange feeling. I think women always generally feel like they're kind of falling short no matter what they do. Just because of how society's conditioned us. But yeah, I think when I am working or if I want to work, I feel like, oh my gosh, why am I focusing on this when I need to be focusing on my child? He's so young, and it is just really hard to navigate, even thinking is he too young for me to leave him with a nanny? Should I be watching him? Should I put Consciously on pause for a little bit so I can focus on raising my child for the next year? But just thoughts like that pop up, and it's really hard because again, I've never done this before. I don't know what the right thing is to do. And I don't think there is one right thing. I think it looks different for everyone. Just because I'm so passionate about what I do at Consciously that it would be really hard for me to step aside for so long.
Yeah. Are you in touch with other moms who are in the same situation?
I do have mom friends, but I don't have a lot of mom friends who are entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. It's definitely its own unique set of challenges. I think my mom friends who work at companies, they know they have a certain amount of time off. And so during that time off, they don't need to do anything except be with their child. And they know that, they're okay, 6 months I'm with my baby, and then I have to figure out childcare, and then I have to go back to work. Right. So it's compartmentalized in a bit more of a structured way. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're a founder, not just with a baby, anything, it's you're always having to like figure out that balance.
Did you think about it during your pregnancy? And now that he's here, is it completely different than what you were planning?
Yeah, like I thought I was going to do like 3 months off. And, any mom friend that I shared that with, they were like, that's not enough time. Like, you're going to want more time. And I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. And then I had my baby and now he's like 4.5. And I'm like, I just want to be with him all the time as well. It's almost like having to pick between my two babies.
Well, that's it. They're like baby drug. And it's like, I don't want to leave him. This is the
Yeah,
most important thing now.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is something I obviously thought about during pregnancy, and I was like, okay, I'll take 3 months off and then I'll go back to work. But it's not been that simple, especially like
Right.
I had a really tough labor. And so it took me a while to like recover and like really start feeling like myself. So now that I am feeling like myself, I feel like, oh, I can actually like enjoy my child now.
Right. Right.
So,
Can I ask what happened during labor? I know it could get really graphic, but share as much as you want.
oh, yeah, it was rough. I was in labor for 44 hours and
Oh my gosh.
I went in on a Thursday and I had the baby on a Saturday. I was induced at 40 and a half weeks, and the baby was, he was like big, and I'm a really petite person.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't like dilated or anything when I had gone in. So we like had to do the whole thing, like they started with like a balloon and then that didn't work the first time. And so like they did it again. So like that itself took like 12 hours to dilate me to like 4
Wow.
centimeters.
Wow.
They gave me a misoprostol, which is a pill that softens your cervix. That didn't really do much. And then they put me on Pitocin, which makes your contractions more frequent and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Still didn't really do anything. I guess like not much really happened until they broke my water. And when they did that, it like really fast forwarded things. And it was like immediate contractions and it was like super painful. And they gave me epidural. I learned during pregnancy that epidural doesn't work on everyone. So I was like, oh my God, that's my worst nightmare.
What?
And
I thought, oh no.
yeah. So unfortunately it didn't work very well on me. And then I had to push, and I pushed for like 5 hours, and it was like really stressful because he wasn't like progressing and his head was big. He was stuck. He was like turned in a weird way. So like the
Oh
doctor
my
had
God.
to like,
He really made you work for it,
oh
didn't
my
he?
God, totally. Yeah, it was so exhausting. Like
Oh my
when I think
gosh.
about it, I'm like, how did I do that? But I'm like, you're literally on survival mode, and you're like,
Yeah,
goal is like, I need to get this baby out.
that's right. That's
But
right.
yeah, it was like at 6 a.m. on Saturday, they were like, all right, we need to take you in for a C-section because baby's heart rate is dropping, your oxygen is dropping. And I was so exhausted by that point. I was like, do whatever you need to like get this baby
Mm-hmm.
out. I was in the hospital for a couple of days. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to stay for 3 days just because I wanted to be at home with my mom and just be in the comfort of my home. But then I was back in the hospital a week later because I was like throwing up 8 times a day because my intestines stopped working. They were like blocked. So I was like throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to be back in the hospital for another 3 days. And yeah, it was like not fun.
But you showed incredible strength and resilience, and you kept going, and that to me is incredible because it's not easy. This is one of the most difficult things, and you're right, it is a blur. And after you come to the other side, you made it.
Yeah,
But
thank
have
you.
you always been a strong person like this?
No,
No.
I don't think like I'm the kind of person who's like, even paper cuts scare me. Like, um, and yeah, like there's like my husband always jokes because like when we first started dating, I like cut my thumb trying to like cut an avocado, and I was so terrified, but I was like bleeding, but I wasn't like looking at the cut. And he was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, why are you not dealing with this. I was like, I literally can't, like, I'm so terrified. I can't look at blood. And so he had to like clean it and, make sure, like, put disinfectant and like all of that. He'll tell you how terrified I am of, all this stuff. I was scared of labor even when I was pregnant. Like, it was the one thing that, was kind of like, I didn't know how I was going to deal with it, but I never expected it to be that hard.
Right. It's not as planned, right? It wasn't the way you thought. Yeah.
I had a healthy pregnancy and, my baby was okay. So that's, I think, what matters ultimately. But it's definitely made me think twice about having another one.
But I think when you go through something like that, it changes your sense of feeling like a lion, or the bravery that comes with giving birth to another human.
Oh yeah.
And then you feel like you can do anything. If you can do that, you can run a business. That's no problem.
Totally, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that we actually don't realize how much strength we have until we're in that situation.
Exactly.
Like, if I had known that that's how my labor would be, I would have been like, I can't do it. But when you're in it and when you know that, like, you have to do this thing and it's for your baby, then somehow you just find the courage to put yourself through that and know that you have to go through it to have a healthy delivery.
Maisa piqued my interest when she mentioned her own mother. The ability to brave such intense storms in her personal and professional life had to have come from somewhere. As it turns out, her mother is also one tough cookie. You mentioned your mom earlier. Describe her a little bit and tell me what you've learned from her growing up with her.
Oh, my mom is super tough. We're very different in terms of like how we think. Fundamentally, I think we have the same values, but she's very fierce. She's very feisty. She's very extroverted. I'm more of an introvert. I'm a little bit more calm, reserved. My mom has been a single mom since, she was 26. She was in an abusive marriage. And so she had 3 kids. It was me and my 2 brothers. I have one older brother and one younger brother. And when my younger brother was born, my mom left her husband. So she had 3 kids under the age of 7 and was a single mom at 26. And I really, really, really have no idea how she did it, because that's just crazy. Like, I couldn't imagine. And she's had a tough childhood. She's had a tough life, but I think she's faced it with a lot of courage, and I admire her for that. She's also an entrepreneur. She's, I would say, probably my biggest supporter. She's a very caring and nurturing mom.
And you were both in Bangladesh and you grew up there?
So when my mom got divorced, we were in LA for a year. That's where my little brother was born. She had an aunt there that helped, take care of her after her divorce. And then we moved to Scotland. I lived there for 8 years. My brothers and I went to school there, and it was really just to get away from my dad. Then we moved back to Bangladesh in 2001, and she's been there since.
Okay. And so she's been running her business as far back as you can remember. She's been entrepreneurial.
Yeah, she started her business when we moved back to Bangladesh. She took over a company that my granddad had started. And it was a very, very small company. It was it's a printing and packaging business. And now it's a multi-million-dollar business that, she grew herself.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you recall seeing anything when you were younger, or can you describe your experience watching your mom operate?
Yeah, I guess, she's always been really hardworking. She would go to work in the morning and she would always be back home for lunch, to have lunch with us. And then she would go back to work, then come back, in the evenings. And then we would spend time together, have dinner, all of that. She's always been really transparent with us about, how things are going and what's happening with her business. So it's always been really interesting to hear her journey. And obviously, when I go home and see how her business is expanding year over year, is also really cool and inspiring. Like my family, they're all, pretty much all entrepreneurial. So business was definitely a big conversation at the dinner table.
So let's bring it back to your work experience. Tell me a little bit about what that looked like when you were in school and then when you graduated into your first job. What was that like for you?
I joined the manufacturing business while I was in school here in San Francisco. So, because I'm from Bangladesh, which is the world's second largest garment exporter, where most fast fashion brands manufacture. Several, if not majority, of my friends and family own garment businesses, and my whole life I've heard of the challenges that factory owners face to meet the ever-growing demands on Western brands that come into the country to leverage cheap labor and the lax policies. I studied fashion marketing. That's why I came to San Francisco, and I always knew that I wanted to start my own thing, but I actually didn't know what that would look like until I got into manufacturing. While I was in school, I was also working at the manufacturing business, and it was that experience that really showed me how apathetic businesses are towards garment workers. Because I would be in business meetings with buyers, telling them that hey, we want to pay our workers a living wage, which is pretty unheard of, and is 4 times the amount of what they actually get paid. But I would always be met with, that's not our responsibility. We need you to make this product for $1 a unit. Otherwise, we'll just go to the factory next door. And they could easily do that because tons of factories are willing to do that. And the more I learned, the more committed I became to bringing about positive change in fashion. And I would say I landed on the idea for Consciously around the end of 2018. So by this point, there were enough sustainable fashion brands doing truly incredible work while also creating beautiful products. I realized that people who do want to shop ethically made fashion have a really difficult time navigating the space because it can be overwhelming to research and understand. When Consciously did launch, we were only a women's wear platform, but now we're in wellness, home goods, men's, children's.
What's confusing people when they are looking for ethically sourced products and brands?
There's so much greenwashing, and you just don't know what you don't know, right? It's like if I were to try and figure out how to navigate the food industry, what's organic, what's not organic, what ingredients are actually good for me. Most people, the average consumer, doesn't know what sustainable fashion looks like, and how to find those brands. It's a complex space, and people don't just want to buy things, I think, these days. They want to feel like they're contributing to a cause through the purchasing choices they make, especially millennials and Gen Z. And consumers are paying attention. There was a report that said 70% of them want to know what the brands are supporting or doing to address social and environmental issues. And because sustainable fashion is so multifaceted, I built a marketplace where consumers can already shop the vetted brands by the values most important to them.
I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking about, people who want to shop consciously and they want to shop at companies that do, as you're saying, but then the price tag sometimes is prohibitive.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that is our biggest pain point. And that's when we survey site visitors on, why did you not purchase with us? It's 80% of the time it's because the price is too high. And I think what a lot of people fail to maybe not see is that the price is high is because the people that are making the clothes are getting paid fairly. They're not getting paid 5 cents to make a shirt. They're making a living wage. And that is obviously a contributing factor to the price of the products that you're purchasing from an ethical brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been trained to think that a shirt should be worth $8.
Yeah, and
But the reason it's $8 is because someone down the production line didn't get paid what they were worth.
exactly.
Maisa is clearly a learned entrepreneur. She knows her industry from top to bottom and has put in the extra legwork necessary for success in her industry. So, what are her biggest takeaways? Do you remember the moment where you said, okay, enough is enough, I need to start my own thing?
Again, I think I had the idea for Consciously around 2018. The biggest issue people were facing was they don't know where to find these brands because a lot of them are small businesses. They don't have the same marketing dollars as Forever 21s of the world. So most people don't know that they exist. And so that's where I was like, oh, it would be interesting to bring all these brands together and, be like a marketing engine for them. A lot of the brands we work with don't have the same, like they're maybe spending more on like product development, research, whereas like we're spending more on like tech and marketing. And then I decided to go all in on it in 2020. I had COVID really, really bad. I was like one of the very early ones that had COVID and I didn't know it was COVID. And there was a point where like I thought I was going to die. I was sick for like 7 months. I was bedridden for 7 months when I had COVID. And I thought I was like having symptoms similar to multiple sclerosis. I was getting tested for it. And it was just a lot of things happening health wise. And so that really was like a moment for me to be like, okay, I need to do what I feel like my life's purpose is. So like I started Consciously. I was like, I'm not going to wait around anymore. I'm just going to do it.
And you started it right after you were sick or
Yeah.
during?
No, I
Okay.
started right after. I got sick in December and I was probably bedridden till like May, June. And I started working on Consciously in July. And then we launched in October 2020.
Wow. So what were the biggest challenges then? Because you're having a pandemic baby business,
Yeah.
which is a lot of people did that. I mean, I think that's very courageous to launch into your own business during a pandemic. So
Yeah.
describe what that was like.
I mean, it's tough because I think like entrepreneurs are faced with unique challenges every day, but definitely one of the biggest challenges was launching in the midst of a global pandemic. We faced multiple delays in launching Consciously because a lot of my vendors were facing supply chain issues where factories were shutting down or operating unpredictably. And so deadlines weren't being met. They didn't have products in stock. And so that made it really hard for us to plan inventory. And retail was one of the most devastated industries by COVID. So when we did launch, our sales were trickling in so slowly for the first year and a half. And that was something that we had anticipated to some degree, but nonetheless, it was really hard and really stressful, especially because we're a bootstrapped company and we'd invested so much capital into inventory. When we first launched, we were actually carrying the products at my house and I was shipping the packages myself. And then in June 2021, I shifted to a dropship model. And as a founder with very limited resources, we don't have investors. You really have to get your hands dirty in all aspects of the business and constantly learn new skills, which is always a humbling experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it really does compel you to like intimately get to know the ins and outs of your business. And I think that's ultimately an advantage and a superpower for a business owner.
Were you ever thinking that this is a mistake?
Yeah, definitely. Especially the first like a year and a half. Even now, so many times where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Because you grow at a much slower pace when you're bootstrapped.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really hard to figure things out mostly on your own with limited funding when your business isn't growing at the pace that you would like for it to. It's very easy to think, I just want to give up. And that's why a lot of startups do fail, is because it's hard to keep going when you're not seeing the growth that you anticipate at the rate at which you anticipate.
So again, things didn't go as planned, right? When things don't go as planned, it's so easy to throw in the towel instead of looking for the opportunity sometimes.
Yeah, and I kind of kept at it because whenever I think about like what else would I do, I don't feel as excited about doing anything else. I'm super passionate about Consciously. If I wasn't, I wouldn't keep going. Even though there are times where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, and then I'll sit and think about what that would look like, and I'll be like, no, like I need to do this. and the business is sort of able to fund itself. Whereas like before we were, I was using my savings, and my mom had given me the capital to start Consciously. Yeah, we're growing really well now, and I feel super lucky to have gotten to where we're at. But there are still days where I'm like, this is so freaking hard. And there have been days where I've wanted to quit, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I personally believe that it's all of our individual responsibilities to leave the world a better place than how we found it. And I think that I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to do that through my business. Whereas if I worked at another company, like I would be working for someone else's mission versus my own. If you are truly passionate about something and you have a problem that you think you're the right person to solve, then just start. Things will never be perfect. You'll constantly fail, but you'll constantly learn and evolve. It is incredibly scary, but that's okay. It's part of the journey. And you have to be really willing to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Thank you so much to Maisa. You can learn more about Consciously through the link in the episode description. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe to And So She Left wherever you listen. Your feedback helps us to better serve current listeners and reach new ones. I also have some great news. And So She Left is nominated for a Signal Award. Please head to the link in the episode description to cast your vote. Your support helps us to continue our mission to highlight extraordinary women who found wisdom beyond the corporate world. And So She Left is made by Cansulta and Ethan Lee. We'll be back next Wednesday with a new episode. Our music is by Chris Zabriskie, edited for your enjoyment. You can find a list of all the songs you heard here in the episode notes. I'm Catherine Vasilopoulos, and thanks for listening.